Monday. Nice to see some familiar faces around here. Jadid, Andrew, looks like Brian. I recognize someone, but I can't see your name. Bob Smith, I recognize you. Welcome back, Bob. Charles, nice to see you. Elliot, thanks for joining us. All right, everyone. So thanks for joining us today. Happy hour is here. I hope that you have your drinks or something to make this a happy hour. Let's talk about what took place in the market today. I've got a couple of more people filing in here. Andrew, let me go ahead and make you the host so you can give me a hand. All right, you are all set. All right, so a couple of things today. The first thing that I want to, while we're waiting for people to file in and throw out some tickers that you want to actually discuss today, one of the first things that I found today, in fact, in terms of new trades, was IGC. There were some monster call sweeps in this. This has been a stock that has been connected from everything from weed to Bitcoin, you name it. This is a day trader stock. I don't trust the stock at all in terms of like whether or not it's a real company and it's going to make profit and all that. It's just a trading vehicle for me. With that being said, I saw repeat option buys, some pretty big option buys in here. Let me figure out what that was. The March 5.5 call. There were 57 contracts being held open going into today, and today we finished with 38,890 contracts in the volume. So someone's doing something there. It was real cheap. It was 5 by 10 when I saw it. I was actually able to get the 4.5 calls at the same price earlier in the day. Those calls now are up, and the calls that were swept up are flat on the day. So this was an interesting trade for me. I just because of its history, I have a feeling that I'm going to get burned on this one. But it was really inexpensive with a really well-defined time frame. So my thought here was, well, okay, if this does have one of its crazy spikes, I'm going to have exposure to it. Really didn't cost me that much. I think I spent like $150 on this entire position. Really not all that bad at all, but an opportunity. So I took this today. Otherwise, I kind of just managed the gap up. I'm not a huge fan when the market gaps like we were, what, 30, 40 handles yesterday overnight in the futures. When the market is that strong and it's going to gap up like that, I'm not a huge proponent of chasing that gap. So I didn't really do that. I kind of just managed some of my other positions. One of the other ones that I took on Friday was TGPY or TPGY. I had held the warrants in this stock before, which I took a profit on. Those warrants traded as high as $12. I got them at $7.90. I think I liquidated this at about $11. This stock to me is incredibly oversold. First of all, I really don't think it should have broke down past this support that it had here around 24. It did on that market sell-off. That was kind of low volume as well. So that was one of my keys here in order to get back in. Definitely oversold, really oversold if you look at RSI on a daily. So I actually picked up some calls on Friday. We formed a nice hammer and we bounced today. So will this continue? Don't know. I actually would advise not chasing these calls until we get confirmation of whether or not we're going to see the next up move here. As far as the story in this particular name, I still really like it, right? This is a battery infrastructure play for electric vehicles, which I think is going to have a big run rate going into the next several years here. So this reminded me of Blink, ticker BLNK, Blink Charging. And if you take a look at this stock chart, you can see exactly why I'm interested in this. I mean, this stock was basically single digits, right? 250 all of a sudden ran up to 65 over the course of a couple of months here. So as long, we talk about it all the time, as long as the themes are there, as long as the catalyst is there, we should be able to take advantage of that. That's kind of what I'm looking at here in the TPGY trade. I do have a little bit of buffer because I was able to trade some of these warrants for a profit. So I'm more inclined to let this run a little bit But this was all I really saw today that was interesting. And if I'm being totally honest, one of the things that I would like to see is I'd like to see some continued momentum. Right now, it just looks like we kind of bounced out of oversold. I do like that we closed above this little gap that we made back on February 22nd. Again, we'll see how tomorrow's session plays out. But if there's any stocks that you want to take a look at, if there's anything of interest that you guys want to talk about, whether it's the market related, specific stock related, strategy related, day trading related, whatever it is that you want, go ahead and throw them in the chat or speak up here. I would be happy to go through as many of these as we can. Majid is already throwing one out. Kirk, all right, let's take a look. Kirkland. All right. So I'm assuming that this Kirkland's, let's see it. Does this have any relation to Costco before I embarrass myself here? Nope. Kirkland. This is a specialty retailer of home decor and gifts in the United States. And stores provide various merchandise, including holiday decor, framed arts, furniture, ornamental wall decor, fragrances, accessories, yada, yada, yada. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at this. First of all, so the first thing to note is that we have a relatively strong chart here. This makes sense considering the coronavirus, right? So this sells home furnishings. Everyone's being forced into their home. And in that time, the stock goes from $1 to $30. So if you're in this is great trade. I would not be looking to take a new position here. I definitely want to wait for a pullback, although the story here is encouraging. If you have some more color to that story, I'd love to hear it. This would be an example of something I would probably take a stab at with options, right? Because if this just pukes everything that it gained back, or if it takes an elevator down, kind of like what we saw in cciv, your risk is defined, and you can't possibly lose more than you learn to bet, or excuse me, more than you actually paid for the options. From my eye here, just from a technical level, looks like we really kind of pushed up here in early January of this year. We want to hold this 25. I would actually want to see one of these tests, right? We kind of tested this level 3 times and we've bounced off it all of those times. If we actually get a break and a close above this candle right here, so let's call it 30, we get a close above 30, I think we could see the next leg here. Just considering my trading style, I normally don't chase breakouts like that. If you did want to actually chase that, I would say you probably put your stop tight here, right? So take a look at when we broke above this former high that we put in December, we actually broke above it in January. When we broke above it, we tested it the very next day, and then we didn't look back from there. We've actually never been back down to that level since then. So this is an example of where I think that if you're going to trade for this breakout above 30 here, I understand why. I think that you can get away with some tight stops. Maybe make your stop 28.50, 28-ish, in order to make sure that you stay in that trade, but also don't risk too much downside. So quite interesting here. This is definitely interesting. I'm not sure how it plays. This would be one to watch here. I've definitely thought that this was Costco related right when we started, but clearly it's not. The only thing that makes me concerned here, obviously, is the fact that we were down at nearly $1. But turnaround plays can make a lot of wealth. So as far as this high here, it looks like we are right at a high that we put in back in 2015. So that just kind of furthers my position here. If we, in fact, maybe we'll change this, right? We'll change this to, we get a close above 29.50. You can maybe trade that against 28 there for a nice little breakout. This would actually be breaking out of a level that, like I said, we put back 5 years ago. I wouldn't actually be surprised to see this take a little break here, right? So it looks like we tried to get above that. We couldn't actually close above that level. Tomorrow, we may get more of a picture on what's going on here. Really, really interesting. So thank you very much for bringing this up. This was actually a nice little one to kick off here. What do you guys think of MGI, ticker MGI, MoneyGram? Not really sure on this as a company. To me, MoneyGram feels like it's kind of outdated, right? Why would you not use a pay app? It seems like moving money around the world has a different application other than MoneyGram. That could be just my ignorance, right? I mean, I'm the type of guy that wants to Zelle or PayPal someone, maybe even pay them in Bitcoin, although I don't want to give up any of my Bitcoin. I wouldn't ever go to MoneyGram. I wouldn't. MoneyGram to me, I feel like there were, years ago, there were a bunch of scams. People try to say, oh, there's money waiting for you at a MoneyGram, blah, blah, blah. I don't really know how the scams work. I don't scam people, so I'm not sure about how that all that works. I just have no angle here, and then the business kind of scares me away. It seems like there's a better way to do this. However, looks like we're actually pretty strong here recently. If we're going to take this trend, I got to click the right button here. All right, if we take a look at this trend here, we're definitely in an uptrend. It looks like we're kind of bouncing off of this trend line, which corresponds to a recent high that we put back in near the end of last year, right before Thanksgiving, that we eventually broke through. So the trend is in your friend here, or the trend is your friend here. I would actually trade this probably against $6 in terms of a downside stop, and my hope would be that we clear 1164 here and make a run towards 12. Not something that I would be jumping at. I would look for other plays, but this might be, this might end up being a hidden gem here. So let's go, so let's take a look and see how this goes. If you guys have any more color on any of these, please let me know. I don't see any other comment on any of these stocks. So we'll eventually just keep going down the list. Andrew, you suggested ticker LI and ticker FSR. I'm assuming that these came from YouTube or some other means. These were some of the EV autos that we've talked about, right? Li Auto designs, develops, manufactures, and sells smart electric SUVs. The company is Li One, and a 6-seat large electric SUV equipped with range extension system and cutting-edge smart vehicle solutions. All right, that's really well written. That all sounds good. I think that this is actually one of those Chinese EV companies. Not my cup of tea. This chart looks pretty terrible, honestly. The trend is absolutely not your friend in this case. We are clearly trending down. We look to be at some support, so right in here. So this looks like, let's go ahead and put this here. All right there. So it looks like we are at kind of an important point here. Now remember, one of these is going to break here. Either the support's going to break or the downtrend is going to break. As we continue to draw candles in here and as we kind of compress into this little triangle area, one of these is going to fall. Which one is it? I don't know the answer to that. What I would do to position myself, if this were me trading, I would position for an upside trend break. I would want this trend to be reversed. We're probably going to get the most volatile action if that's the case. If we get a sell-off, the sell-off could be orderly and we could hit a number of different supports on the way down. The very next support here could be right around 23, maybe even 23.50. So if we do kind of break down through 24.50, there's two other really supports that are quite near that we pay attention to. So let's go ahead and actually mark those off, because just in case you do want to play those on the support, I definitely understand. So let's go ahead and mark this off here. All right, I tried to get that exact. Not going to work. My OCD is going crazy, but okay. So here are going to be your two support levels, right? So if we break down past 24.70, we're likely to test these two levels, close beneath those levels, and I pretty much am just going to move on here. If we continue to compress and we continue to hold this level, that almost seems bullish for a trend reversal, right? So we want to see a break out of here. I would imagine over the next week or so, we'd really need to break out of the 28 area. So interesting. We'll have to see where this goes. I'm sure we'll come back to this as we do with most of the EV plays. Definitely a hot theme that we talk about all the time. There's always seems to be new names here, and there always seems to be movement here. And obviously Tesla is the the big catalyst here. So so we'll come back in here. We'll check on this. I know FSR was the other one that Andrew mentioned. This is also a EV play. So you can see here, this is actually a much better trend, currently in an uptrend, currently have some buying power here as our tailwind. And it also looks like we broke this recent high at 2360, right? So snapping that high was definitely important. You can see the kind of the ferocity of the next move up here. Looks like we're consolidating. Let's zoom in a little bit here and see what took place today. All right, so you had a nice little volume expansion trade off this one today. I didn't actually play this. I can't remember if anyone else hit this in the room. Definitely looks like there was some buying volume here today. Looks like we had some more buying volume on Friday. And then we're able to hold those lows. So this is definitely near term. This is definitely a good sign. If we had broken beneath some of these intraday Friday lows and then closed beneath it, I'd be a little bit worried that we'd kind of fall back into this 20 level. But the fact that we're holding it is good. That bodes well. I know the market obviously up today, so we'll have to see what happens the rest of the week here. But this is looking good. This one looks much better chart wise than LI just did. So this one I would end up following a little bit more closely. All right, let's move on here. Brady and Charles want to talk about Morphic, M-O-R-F. All right, so this was the big one today, right? This was the absolute ripper. Morphic shares are trading higher. The company reported FY20 sales of 45 million, up 17 million year over year. So really good beat on the former comp there. The company also reported positive interim results from a single ascending dose phase 1 clinical trial. Okay, so a couple of things here. This is actually something that Jonathan talks about all of the time when he gives his short list for the Benzinga Pro newsfeed. He talks about wanting to trade biotechs all of the time, and also talks about using these phases as keywords because they often create movement in a bunch of different stocks. And if we look here today at MORF, this is exactly what we see, right? We closed around $36 on Friday. We opened around 44 today, and this thing ran up to 92 today. So just an absolute monster move today on volume. You can see multiple spikes up here. So let's take a look and see what some of the comments are here. Can we talk about Morphic for a minute? Ridiculous pump and dump run or long-term growth potential? All right, so that's what we're going to kind of have to find out, right? This is actually not something that I have an edge on. So in some of these cases, like what we just talked about when I led with IGC here, I've seen IGC say that they're going to change the world in a number of different ways, and I've seen it not materialize. So could I be wrong? Yeah, I mean, sure, you can always be wrong. They could really be doing something. That option flow could be alluding to something. I tend to suspect it's not. With this company, I have absolutely no background information. So I have no idea if this is going to be the case. Now, I do see here that it looks like we had an offering right after the bell. So if we take a look at the chart here, it looks like not reacting like crazy to this yet. I have to look into that a little bit more. Proposed public offering 200 million. I'd like to actually go through this. 30 million shares on its common stock. All the share. Okay, so generally, this is one of the reasons why I also don't like chasing. Right. So let me scroll down here. Let me see. Jadid was asking about MORF. All right, so I'm just catching up on some of the comments here. Can we talk about volume, mostly equity? Okay, so yes, Hiram, we will talk about volume in a little bit here. Okay, so here's the thing. So you want to know, is this for real or is this some pump and dump? So the way that I would answer that is that it could actually be both, right? This could actually be a real company with real things on the horizon, but it could be being pumped or promoted in a way right now. I believe that this ticker does not have options. It does not. So right away, the fact that something like this that I have no edge on doesn't have options means that I'm much less likely to actually try this for anything less than for anything more than a day trade. because it's just harder for me to get my edge on it. I mean, the company, I mean, this thing ran over 100% today. So the offering doesn't surprise me at all. Looks like it had a price target raised at Wells Fargo. So definitely some good stuff here. Watching what other analysts are going to say about a particular name, that actually might help determine whether or not you think this company is pretending or actually participating in whatever market segment it's in. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to answer the $1,000 question that everyone wants to know. Is this a pump and dump? Was it Charles? Is this a ridiculous pump and dump run or a long-term growth potential? Given the information that I have right now, I can't answer that for you. What I can say is that we do see things like this, especially in biotech, happen on a semi-regular basis. So what I would do is I would actually wait this one out. So we just got news of an offering after the bell that we're starting to pull here a little bit in terms of the price. What I would want to do here is I kind of want to wait. It's going to be a little tough to actually kind of chart this just because of just this humongous bar. This bar here is actually going to cause problems in terms of figuring out where we're going to go next, because we really want to break out of that range in one direction or another, whether it be to the upside or the downside. And just because the bar is so big, it might take a while to do that. So what I am going to do here is I'm going to draw in some lines that have to do with today's session only. Remember, we don't have a lot of data on some of these other sessions. And by comparison to today, it's almost nothing on the volume at all. So even if I were to go back here and draw in some lines, I'm not sure how great these would actually be, because so much of this recent price movement took place recently. So what I am going to do is I'm going to try to give myself as much information as possible, and I immediately want to recognize some of the different support levels here. I generally like to chart support before resistance. Perhaps that's just the pessimist in me. I think that stocks that are up are going to fall before they actually take their next leg up. I know when I first started trading, whenever I would buy a new position, it would go down right away. And when I would buy a position and it wouldn't go down, I would think something's up, and then I'd start second guessing myself. But that's another story for another day. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to try to give myself as much insight as possible by charting some of the highs and the lows that were made by the price, bonus points for highs and lows that are put in on volume. So for example, right here, this little spike right here came with some volume. I definitely want to know about that. You can even use different colors on your lines if you really, really want to get crazy and wild. I'm not going to do that for the sake of this example, but you feel free if you want to do that. So right here, these are going to be some of the levels that I'm going to pay attention to. Go ahead and draw in one more here right around that 52 level. And the reason that I'm doing this is because tomorrow we may learn a lot about this. So first of all, you can see that we definitely pulled a little because of the offering. We're starting to curl here. So if we can hold this, if we see any more analyst ratings tomorrow, in either direction, this might not only give us more information on a potential swing trade, but we also might have multiple opportunities to take advantage of both sides of this trade tomorrow for day trades. I mean, if we sell off all the way to 66.56 and that level or that 65 level holds, there's no reason we can't bounce back to a 70.75 handle, even with no other news, just strictly on the trading. I mean, again, the range put in today was quite huge. So this is definitely one to watch for tomorrow's session. Be careful. I suspect this is going to be volatile. This is absolutely not something that I would hold overnight. And then as an aside, remember this, because this is what can happen when you're trading biotech stocks that release information or some type of PR on phase 2, phase 3, or in this case, phase 1 clinical trial. So we'll see how this actually plays out in the future. Is there anyone else out there play this today? I mean, I know that this was one of the hotter stocks, so I would be shocked if no one out there actually played this today. I see Joe shaking his head. I see Jadid shaking his head. Charles shaking his head. Yeah. So we got a whole bunch of no's out here. Okay. So that's okay. Let's see how this goes, how this does tomorrow. I'm skeptical of it with the offering, but I would be open to an actual day trade tomorrow. Again, no options. So keep that in mind if options are part of your trading plan here. All right, so I am going to go through some more of these lists here. PLTR, of course, we're being asked about. Let's go ahead and do that. Michael says, Ryan, I know you don't like Chinese stocks, but Navalier recommends Futu. I'm interested in the daily ups and downs, less so long term. Okay, so we'll add that onto the end here as well. All right, so the next three stocks that we're going to do here, PLTR, uwmc, and Futu. So let's do that. So let's first take a look at PLTR here. All right, so we've got some of our drawings from before. We have the trend that we were talking about before. Nice to see us bounce off of this hammer that we put in on Friday, but we probably bounced with the overall market. So if I take a look here, we definitely gapped up here, and then we kind of flagged and held. So nothing alarming yet. I think I would have liked to have seen more momentum to the upside here, perhaps even a close above 25.50-ish to remain bullish. So this is, I'm still going to put this in the no touch or in the wait and see category. Wait and see, not no touch. This is wait and see. I know Kathy's on board here. I know this has been hot recently. The CEO was recently on CNBC. We're actually going to be talking to Kathy Wood pretty soon. Be sure to check that out. Brian or Andrew, if you're still around, if you have the details on when that Kathy Wood spot is, that would be helpful to our discussion here. However, in the meantime, I think that I would have liked to have seen some more power out of this today, considering how strong the market was. I would have liked to have seen some more power out of this. That being said, I don't think we're done yet, right? We want to wait and see. We're still below this 25.54, but we're not, there's nothing to be worried about yet, so to speak. So I would say that the worrying can start right when we break through this 22. Let's even call that, let me see if I can edit that. Let's call this 22.75. All right, so I would say if we break down past 22.75, that would be something to be concerned with. I think that we probably go back down to the 15 level, but we're not there yet. So we're still above that. Let's see what happens. I'm not in a rush to take a new position on this. I want to have some more information, and I definitely want to see some more strength out of it, especially when the market is this hot today. So, okay, next stock here, uwmc. uwmc. Okay, so when you see charts like this, go ahead and turn that off. Sorry about the disruption, folks. When you see stocks like this, this is definitely, if you like this company, then your next step is to wait until this trend reverses. That's pretty much all there is to it. This is a bad sign. That is not a good trend. Now, the keen observer will probably note that, hey, at one point, Ryan, go-go looked like this, and you've been long since the threes, and now you're, above 12 here. You're absolutely right. But I didn't hold it through this elevator down or this staircase down. This is almost an escalator down, right? This is pretty nasty. The last time that we had a corrective spike out of this downtrend, it was immediately met with equal sellers and then continued on the other end of that. So what I want to see is I want to see some bottoming formations here. Maybe we're starting to get that, right? Bottoms often look ugly when it comes to individual stocks or markets. They're volatile. It's back and forth. You'll see some sell-offs, then you'll see some bounces met with more sell-offs before that process of price discovery actually completes, and then a new trend or a new direction is formed. We don't have that here yet, and I think that that's the key. Could this be the start of a bottom and an actual reversal? It could. Could this go to 5? Yeah, it could. And unfortunately, because I don't have any other information, I have two choices. I can either A, sit on the sidelines, or I can play tactically with tight steps to make sure that a loss doesn't become a big loss. Now, if you're going to tell me that you know something about this particular company or market segment and your time horizon is 2 or maybe even longer, you know, a year, 2 years, 3 years, if you're talking in terms of years as opposed to days or even weeks, then I think that this day-to-day price action is less important the longer your time horizon is. If you were to, you know, if you were to think, hey, I'm going to buy some of this and I'm going to wait 2 or 3 years before I actually consider selling it, this could easily in that time reverse and then 3x or maybe even 5x. So I just understand exactly what your plan is prior to doing this. In the meantime, from a short term, like I said, the clear trend that I see is down. And I'm not looking to short something. Even if I was a short bias trader, I would pick something that's not in single digits, right? If I were to short this right here, this stock has $7.63 of potential profit and an infinite upside. Those are not good risk to reward ratios. I believe the stock does trade options, UWMC, right? That's the ticker. It does trade options. The options actually look fairly liquid too. So that might be a way to trade this then. Define your risk ahead of time, try to play for the bounces. Let me see if I can actually, oh, I lost my mouse. So here we go again. Here we go again with the mouse. All right, let me see. Yeah, so this is still a relatively new stock. Looks like this IPO'd or SPAC'd or what it became available to trade in April of last year. So just really, really hard for me to get an idea here of, or to get any type of edge. I guess really the only edge that I could look around about 650. So maybe right around here, you want to take a small starter. I'd keep your stops tight on this though. Again, I want to wait until this trend has been negated and changed. Once it, and I'm okay not hitting the bottom, right? If let's say the bottom is in, right? Let's say that this was the lowest print that we're going to see in the next several years here. I'm okay not getting it at, what was that, 724? I'm okay with that. If I have to buy this at 9 or 10 in the hopes of this going to 20, that's fine with me. I would rather be sure of the direction of the next move than just kind of guessing and trying to nail the low print. If you're trying to hit dead lows and dead tops, you're going to be more aggravated than you are happy. So just try to play the trend, put the odds in your favor. Until I see a reversal here, it's just not there for me. Let's move on to the next stock here. This was Futu, F-U-T-U. I'm probably butchering that, but it is what it is, right? So this is, as mentioned by Michael, this is a Chinese-based stock. And let me just reiterate on that. That's just part of my own trading plan. There are plenty of people that are believers in Baba and Baidu and a lot of these bigger Chinese companies. Just because I don't like them doesn't mean that someone else can't be very, very successful with them. It's just what I've found works for me. Now, the first thing that I'll notice here is that we, since December of last year, we're on a pretty amazing run, right? So right around Christmas of last year, the stock was around $40. We're up at 167 today. So important to keep that in mind. First thing I want to do when I see something like that, you know it, we're going to go to the colorful Fibonacci retracement drawing. We want to get an idea of where some of these levels are. Now, once we actually add this drawing here, you can see that a couple of levels are painfully obvious. That 140 level, definitely obvious. That 165 level looks like we're right around there right now. Pretty obvious there. And that $100 level, pretty obvious there. So again, 100, 140, 165, those are going to be some of your key levels. Let's call the top level here 205, right? If we end up seeing a break of that upside level, we are going to be in what's commonly referred to as a blue sky breakout. Let me just make sure that, yeah, that's true. We've actually never been at these levels here before. So definitely something to keep in mind. However, the faster these stocks run up, if the trend changes, they can drop just as fast. And in some cases, they can drop faster. So be sure to have a plan for your downside if this is something that you're going to take long. Now, you had mentioned, Michael, that Navalier had recommended this. I'm interested in the, I am interested in the daily ups and downs and less so long term. Okay, if that's the case, then you're in pretty good shape. You found yourself a trading vehicle that you can actually hit over and over again. The volatility is here in this name. If I were to compare this to something like GE or Ford, which really doesn't move around, this thing is moving around quite a bit. We just talked about this going from 40 to 165 in the course of a couple of months here. But even if we look at some of these other intraday moves, I mean, we had a day here, February 16th, we went from 156 to 195, right? So we had $40 of movement in one day. If that's the type of thing that you're looking for and you're looking to take advantage of, this might be a perfectly good stock for you. The question is going to be, are you able to actually time this next move? So if that's one of the things that you're trying to do here, big levels that I think I'm looking at here, 165, 140, 100. Where we're at right now at 167.30, we're really close to 165. Look what happened here. Looks like we bounced off that 165 right before the close. All right, so something to keep in mind. Even when we sold off before, we couldn't get past 164. We did. Oh, no, we did. Excuse me. We got down to 164. So it looks like we did test that 165 level. Buyers immediately brought us back above, held there for the rest of the day. And then right before the close, we tried to test that level again and we were bounced. So this. Watch the opening here tomorrow. I'm really glad that I'm not in this overnight. This is one of those stocks that will cause you to lose sleep because you're just not really sure what's gonna happen. Michael, I would be interested in hearing how you have traded this recently. If you're looking for the ups and downs of every single day, or if you're looking to just day trade this, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts and strategy behind this. Looks like the past couple of days here, I mean, I guess you really could have bought on some of these dips, but overall, looks like we've kind of trended down. Maybe that's turned around now. We'll have to wait and see. So I'll scroll down here and take a look and see if there's anything else that you added real quick.
Ryan, I don't have any great secrets about this. I just thought it had interesting rises and falls that you could, somewhat profit by because of the volatility and volume. But I'm fairly a newbie, so that's all I can add to my so-called strategy.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. And I don't want anyone to be scared away because they view themselves as a newbie or anything like that. We were all newbies at one point. Don't let that scare you away. First of all, let's talk about one of the things that you're choosing to do. You're choosing to take advantage of some of the volatility intraday as opposed to looking long term. Considering where the stock is and how quickly it moved there, probably a really good idea. As always, though, and you're going to hear me say this a bunch of times, it's not going to be the last time, make sure you have a plan for when this goes against you. It's going to be, if you buy, let's say you were to buy calls right here, and this thing gaps up $10 tomorrow, and then another $10 the day after. That's an easy trade to manage, right? When you watch the amount of money that you have go up and up and up, that's much easier than watching that money disappear. Trust me. So make sure that you have a plan in case this doesn't work. As far as your hypothesis on there looks to be a lot of volume or a lot of volatility in here. Yeah, that's true. My big question is how easy is this to take advantage of during the day? It's great to see a stock move from 150 to 162 over the course of a couple hours, it looks like. Here, looks like this low was put in at 12.25, and then the subsequent high off the bounce was back in at 2:15, so just under 2 hours here. So that makes a great opportunity to trade there. But in hindsight, it seems really, really easy. When this is actually taking place, are you able to take advantage of this? Let's just take this day, for example. Let's just break this down real quick. All right. If somehow you have identified this level from a previous place in the chart, like for example, let's say you were looking right around here, right? And you said, okay, this is going to be the dead low of the candle. If it doesn't actually test that, maybe I'll put my next line here. All right. If this is what you're waiting for to actually get filled, you ended up getting this. This is what, the 25th. So this is, so this was Thursday of last week. So you end up getting a sell-off to this point, and then you also get a bounce. But you get an immediate, after that bounce, you get an immediate sell-off back to even, and then you get the actual move. Now, the reason that I bring this up is because if I were taking this trade, I would probably be stopped out here. If this comes into my area and I take it, and I understand that, hey, you know, this is a day trade, I'm probably going to stay in this. When it actually retests that, I have a decision point to make. Now, if I took this position on the dead low at, say, 149.50, I'm likely not going to stop out of that trade at flat if I'm in options when this trades back down to 150.50. But if I don't nail that dead bottom here, let's say I buy that at 150.50 or maybe even 151. When this second rush down comes, it's possible that I'm going to get stopped out of this because, again, I know going into this trade that I want this to be a short-term trade. The whole goal here is to try and take whatever gains I can make in that particular day and keep them instead of giving them back. And then right away, within 20 minutes, we get a retest of that low. Now, we held that low, and after we held it, we bounced and we moved up. And if you're able to stay in that trade, perhaps you did profit nicely off of this. So to answer your question is, I think that you found a really good vehicle here that's moving around quite a bit. The options are a little expensive. I mean, generally for these options, this month's options that are near the money are nearly $2,000 a contract. And they look like, if you go up to the 200 price point, they look like they're still $1,000 a contract. These are a little expensive. Volume is a little bit light here, so this might be tough to actually do. But you did find a stock here that's moving around quite a bit, and given this pretty dramatic run up, I would actually try to use the 5-minute chart here to try and get an idea of where some of these recent support and resistance levels were made, and then I would just stick to whatever plan that you come up with. So interesting, good job at finding something that's volatile. I think that there are trades to be had here, but I suspect just by looking at this, that this one might be a little bit difficult, especially for a newbie. Again, don't let that scare you away. If you're still figuring out a process, that's totally fine. That's a normal part of your trading career. Just be very careful. Make sure that you don't blow yourself up. You only have to get rich once, so don't blow it trying to rush it, right? Be safe, be tactical, and try and protect yourself to some downside. Let me see if there were any more comments on this. Kathy Wood is 2 p.m. Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. Thank you, Brian, for getting that into the chat. I really appreciate that. All right, so Chinese are using this platform to trade U.S. stocks. I don't think they're using us to trade stocks. We're just a financial news media platform. You still need a broker. But again, just to go back to that, just because a stock is Chinese doesn't mean that it's no good. It just means that it has not fit into my trading plan. To each his own. China might allow people to use $50,000 to trade U.S. stocks every year. Okay, I'm not sure the context behind that. Brian Moore, I use Futu Moomoo personally, and I really like it a lot. Webull is a little better, but Moomoo is my main account at the moment. All right, hey Brian, if you're out there, can you talk a little bit about that? Can you add any bit of color to that?
Yeah, so it's been my main account for pretty much all of 2021 so far, and I have had it for about 2 years. But I like to trade with 2 different accounts because both of them are under PDT limitations. So I like to have as many day trades as possible. And
Sure.
I found Moomoo a while ago, and I like it a whole lot. I mean, they're all basically the same thing once you get past Robinhood. And if you're in Robinhood, you should absolutely get out of it. But
so you're not worried at all about being able to have access to your money. Do they restrict purchases or sells for any reason?
They did not restrict whenever GME and AMC and everyone else, like when Webull and Robinhood restricted them, they never restricted the trading for them. Okay. I mean, I haven't had any issues. I've been able to link my bank accounts with no problem.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, that's actually some really good insight, right? So then one of the reasons that I think that this might be up is because so many people have been trading recently, whether it be Bitcoin or the GameStop thing or whatever the case is. This probably saw more users and revenue and all of that in accordance with their business model. So that would kind of explain the big move here. But again, just keep in mind that it's volatile. Keep in mind that if you're going to trade this, having a plan for both directions is going to be prudent. Brian, thank you very much for the firsthand color of the actual broker itself. That's actually really good to know. I'm glad you're here because I would not have been able to answer that. So okay, interesting stuff. Really good. I'm glad that we had this conversation. So thank you very much for bringing this name up. Otherwise, if we hadn't added as much context, I might have just glossed over that, and I don't really think that that would have been the best move here. So, all right, Hindenburg is known for negative articles, always having a large position before said article comes out. Criminal, nevertheless, as you can see, it has an effect on stocks it targets in regards to SOS. So it looks like it broken the downtrend and can make a move to A+. So you're referring to ticker SOS. I think one of the things you're talking about is this recent sell-off, right? This recent move down. We talked about this quite a bit on the show here. One of the things the first thing in this, I actually did this charting on my other computer, so forgive me. The chart, the trading, excuse me, the drawings were not remembered for this computer. But if you recall, one of them that we said is it was kind of making a floating island here. And if it breaks this floating island and then confirms that break with a break of this downside candle, or with the break of the bottom of this big candle here, that we are probably returning to the bottom or to this area, and look where that candle hit, right? So on this move down, whether or not you agree with the reason for this move down, or whoever published the catalyst for this particular move down, all of that's in the past. If you guys have a time machine that works, contact me privately. I'd like to say a few things to my late father, but since time travel has not been figured out yet, I'm going to guess that no one out there is able to go back in time and change that. The only thing that we can do is play with the information that we're given. So as soon as we saw this breakdown of this $9 level, we pretty much assumed it was going to test 5. It's done that. And the good news here, the bullish news here, if you will, is that not only did it test that level to the downside, but it held that level, and now it's bouncing, right? So if we see some continued upside here, your next target is going to be a break of $8.90. Let's call it $9 if you want. Once we break that to the upside, then there might be a little bit of choppy trading here. But of course, once we break that level, we really want to test this level here, which is right around 16. Now, these moves came fairly quickly. So we don't want to assume that this move is going to be as quick as it was on the way down. It might take a month for this to play out, but it might play out exactly like we're talking about. So keep your eye on it. If you did take a position as this thing bounced, if you believed in the long-term story and did not care much for Hindenburg, that's good. You actually were able to get a discount here, and let's see what tomorrow brings. Unlike PLTR, this is definitely a stronger bounce, right? Let me actually go to the 5-minute here. It's given me a little bit better color on the past sessions, right? So we closed here around 480. We gapped up in the pre-market. When the market actually opened, we flagged around this 650 area, but notice how we held that, right? We didn't actually break down throughout the course of the day. This to me is going to be the stark difference in the trading today between SOS and between PLTR. So I'm more encouraged to see this. Again, I believe that this wouldn't fit my trading plan just because of it being a Chinese stock. And then also, this was involved in Bitcoin, wasn't it? Healthcare services. No, maybe this wasn't. I'm probably mixing that up with someone. We need Alice back here, right? Alice has been one of our members that has given us a ton of context on this. Alice is back. SOS has lots of warrants to exercise. That is the issue. You never know when. SOS is a Bitcoin miner. Okay, so that I knew there was a connection here to Bitcoin. Bitcoin sold off. It looks like Bitcoin's bouncing. I'm actually mining myself right now. That's another story. It looks like Bitcoin did end up bouncing today. So we're up 6.2%. We're at the 49,000 level on BTC, 49,205 here on the futures. So that's great. So if Bitcoin continues to bounce, if Hindenburg was actually misleading or distorting in any way, I would expect then over the next month or two a move back towards the highs here. Will we get there? I don't know for sure. You can play this in either direction. If you are a bull on this, again, this is great. We actually got a discount here. We created a range. We tested the boundary of that range. The next step here is to test the upper boundary of that range. Will we get there? Don't know. If we continue to trade up, maybe we actually maybe the momentum kind of dies out around 12 and creates a lower high on this daily chart. If that's the case and you were in today, that's still almost a double from where we're at. So there's still opportunity in this name. And then, of course, you've got Alice in our back pocket. Alice has been contributing here every day for weeks and has been all over SOS. So Alice, thank you very much for all of your contributions here. In this case, you're mentioning that there's a lot of warrants to exercise and you never know when those warrants are going to be exercised. So that's part of the holdup here. That might also be one of your catalysts, right? If you see some of those warrants exercise, the price holds, and we're not entering some type of sell-off or downtrend, that might be one of your bullish catalysts to the upside. So SOS already over 555 for more than 10 days, according to the January 27th news. It might exercise again. So, okay, that's something to keep in mind. If this is something that you're thinking about, maybe a deeper dive, some more due diligence into the specific warrant situation that this company has in question, that might actually give you that edge to trade. You might be able to take advantage of that in either direction. Next here, we're going to go to CCIV, and one of our YouTube viewers had requested Airbnb, also clov. Okay, so those three stocks we're going to hear.
Real quick, could I just ask, just to follow up, Ryan, with your questions to Brian about the Chinese broker accounts?
Futu, F-U-T-U, yep.
Well, specifically on Webull, and of course, I guess your Mumu. But is anyone concerned about giving the Chinese your social security number?
Okay, so real good question there. I'm going to take that first, and then I'll let Brian answer it if he has any context.
In addition to everything else.
So you bring up a really good point there. I gotta say that I'm not as worried about that. My big concern with having the Chinese having some of my private data is choosing what they're going to show me. Even if my social security number got into the hands of a Chinese company and then got into the hands of the Chinese Nationalist Party or whatever they call themselves, I'm not terribly worried about that. I still think that there are a number of things that can be done here stateside to make sure that my identity is protected and that I'm going to have recourse to be able to correct anything that's going to happen. Meaning that if I give my social security number to one of these companies and it gets used for a nefarious purpose, and someone's trying to, open up lines of credit or buy other houses, that I'm not as worried about. When it comes to my own money and my own investments, I'm often more worried about that than my own damn health. So that might be my own problem. But I just have my issue with Chinese stocks is that when they give me numbers, I can't verify that those numbers are correct. If I'm looking for a number that's really good and they might say, oh, we might dress that up to show that to you, that could cause the stock to move. That could cause the stock to move violently. It's just unpredictable. As far as my own safety goes, I'm less worried about that. So Brian, do you have any concern on that? When you opened your account with Mumu, were you worried about that? Was there anything that they did to alleviate some of those concerns? Do you have any context about that at all?
No, I'm not really that concerned about it. I'm pretty big on cybersecurity, and like I have a few networking certificates and stuff, so I'm pretty well versed on how to protect my identity online and everything like that. I'm not really concerned because they quote unquote do have a headquarters here, but Webull and a lot of places do have one. But it's not. I'm not really concerned because, like Ryan said, you can't really do anything with my social security number. I mean, good luck with my credit score doing anything like that. But I do agree with some of the Chinese like stocks in particular, like GSX and Lunkin Coffee are two examples where GSX is a online education course and at a Chinese company, and they committed some serious fraud and stuff like that. But their stock price is still up here. And a buddy of mine lost money on making puts and bets on that it would crash anyway. And then Luckin Coffee got delisted for defrauding investors too. So that's something that worries me, but not the actual brokerage itself, because there's not much they can do. And as long as I can move my money freely and it doesn't get held up, like if I ever had a hiccup, I'd probably be a little more weary about it, but they can't really do anything with my identity. I'm just more worried about if I can get my money out or not.
Yeah.
But they don't really have, their fee structure is a lot better, and they give free level 2 data. So, which a lot of places do now too.
David, simply put, this is what I'm worried about. I'm worried about gigantic gap down from 25 to single digits. That's what I'm worried about. If they're going to try to go to the length to steal my social security number, I'm going to fight that. And I feel like I've got a lot of tools in my toolbox to fight that.
Well, not to go down a rat hole here, but if anyone's interested in really seeing what's going on, there was a documentary primarily on muddy waters, and it showed how there's no transparency. You can't believe anything that comes out of China, which we all know that anyway.
Yeah.
But it was super interesting documentary. If I forget what it was called, I watched it a couple months ago, but yeah.
If you come across the name, please share it with us. But you're actually hitting on a larger point that I want to piggyback, if you will. I'm into all that stuff. I'm a junkie for documentaries and information and learning new things, right? That's just my own personality. I absolutely love that. There is nothing wrong with preparing yourself as much as you possibly can. The one definitive thing that I can say to you today, and I can be 100% sure that I'm accurate on this, is that each one of you cares more about your own money than anyone else in the world. I know for it, maybe some of you have a significant other, and that may complicate the calculus there. I'll leave that to you. Otherwise, outside of that, no financial advisor, no company, no CEO, no friend cares more about your money than you do. So when it comes to watching documentaries and trying to get as much information as you can to make the best educated decisions, I'm a huge proponent in that. There have been times where I've watched documentaries of one subject, and they were each on a conflicting side, and I watched both because I wanted to get the opinion of both sides and then make up my own opinion. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I think as an investor and a trader, you're doing yourself a service by preparing yourself as best as you can. So don't ever turn something down that's trying to present information. With that being said, if some of the information that's coming out can't be proven or seems strange or shady to you, I don't have a problem with people being skeptical either. Again, consider the source. But just generally speaking, David, I think that's really good advice. Watch some of these documentaries. Watch things that kind of peer into the inside of this so that you can understand. Again, I have friends that are Chinese. I've known plenty of Chinese people. China is not bad in and of itself. However, when I'm trading investment vehicles where I cannot believe the numbers that are being given to me, that takes my edge for trading those investment vehicles away. And as a result, I'm going to look elsewhere where I can stack those odds in my favor. It's nothing personal. It's just business. It's just my own personal finances, which again, I'm the one that cares more about that than anyone else. That's where all of this comes from. And again, that's not to say that you can't make these things work. It can absolutely work. So just something to keep an eye on. Really appreciate the color and the question on that though. Let's run through some of these stocks here real quick that we talked about: CCIV, CLOV, and there was one more, Airbnb. All right, so those are the first that we're going to hit. So first of all, we got a question here: is CCIV dead, or is it just a long hold at this point? Well, first of all, I don't think it's dead. I don't really think anything in the EV industry is dead until it's actually dead, bankrupt. Who knows what can happen? This company, we just had a merger. Obviously, there was that issue with the pipe where the big boys were getting in at 15. We've got a price here around 30 that's been cut in half from its highs of 64. No, I don't think this is dead. I want, again, kind of like with some of the other trades here, I want to see a trend, right? We just had a very, very strong uptrend reverse because of that piece of news, right? This was an extreme example of buy the rumor, sell the news. This big, powerful trend that I would want to be a part of has now been reversed. Until we find the next direction of that trend, I'm going to be cautious here. Now, I like that we kind of held this area here, right? That's good. But until I'm sure that we're actually going to be making a move to attack this bar here, especially because it's just got such a big range, until we actually make a move to take this out, I'm going to wait. I'm going to be patient. This stock trades options too, so it's going to make it a little bit more tricky. It's going to be easier for you to actually get into some of those options. You're going to be able to define your risk ahead of time. So I don't know if this is going to be a viable long-term hold. Maybe this car is just riddled with problems. They scratch it, everything falls apart, the company goes bankrupt. That's a possibility. I don't know the answer to that. I really like the way it looks and I want to believe it. So maybe you could say that my bias is there. But in terms of trading, I'm not going to trade this until the next trend has been defined. We've got decreasing selling volume. So until I see this volume expanding with buyers, I'm kind of in wait and see mode on CCIV. Let's do CLOV next. This had some recent news. I actually played this back when it was IPOC before the SPAC merger and it turned into CLOV. The conference call is in progress. We did have earnings. Let's check out how those earnings did. Looks like our news desk gave this a positive earnings report. We had a net loss of 81 million, or excuse me, a net loss of 81 million versus the loss of 78.67 million the same quarter last year. Okay, so we were down a little bit on EPS. I almost said FPS. That's embarrassing. Down a little bit on EPS. And it looks like we've got a pretty good sales and loss number. So interesting to see how this plays out. One of the things that I think that's interesting about CLOV is I think that some of that SPAC hype that was in it recently has kind of abated now. We're ways after that merger. This is obviously a Chamath name. There are a lot of people that are following him into this. It looks like the earnings are good. I really haven't taken a deep dive into the actual EPS report, but on the surface, it looks good. And it looks like maybe we just talked about this in the last stock. It looks like maybe this trend is reversed, right? If that's the case, this is great. This is another potential play to the upside, right? So we've got this kind of downtrend channel here that it looks like we're starting to reverse. We want to see a couple of more days of data to see if the bottom is actually in. Remember, bottoms, generally speaking, are not very clean like this. There's generally a back and forth action that takes place before the trend is actually confirmed. But basically, if we see a break above this trend line and we can actually start making a move back towards 20, this could be a viable play here. You can see if we zoom in, we've got quite a bit of support levels here. Looks like all of them in the 10 range. So we're at kind of a important inflection point here. If I were going to take a new trade on this, I would, without even thinking about it, I would trade this against $10. Maybe make my stop $9.80 so that I'm not as susceptible to that round number rule if we do in fact test that value in the near future. Trade this against 10, looking for a run towards 20. If you enter this at 11 or 12, you're looking at a pretty good risk reward ratio there. So I actually like this name long term. I think that we're kind of caught up in the whole SPAC craze. We're definitely in a recent downtrend, but this could fall, and a quality earnings print could be a real good start to that trend reversal. So this is a good one. We will keep our eye on this and we will come back to this. Let's go now to Airbnb. And I know we're 4 minutes over here, but I do want to get to what I promised that we would get to. If we didn't get to your stock today, that don't worry, come back tomorrow. We will try and hit it tomorrow. We ran through kind of a lot, and we had some side discussions today as well. So first of all, Airbnb, from a macro perspective, I actually really like this name. I think that we're only going to continue to expand reopening in this country and also around the world. I mean, we'll see what New Zealand's doing, but that's an entire another story. I think that the reopening trade is going to be one of the next catalysts here. And I think that when you combine that with summer, things like Airbnb, maybe even some of the airlines, might give some pretty good opportunities here. Now, as you can see, we are on a close beneath this trend line, but we're not very far off. And honestly, this, for my Stratter friends out there, we have an inside day today, right? We had a very, very small range and an inside day within this bar from Friday. So Michael gave me some more context here. Airbnb, March 1st was the first release date from the IPO, so there was probably downward pressure on the stock. So I think that one of the things that you're talking about was this like a lockup expiry, where these people that were available to sell their shares for the first time today. If that's the case, I can absolutely see why some of this actually sold off. You can see, though, that the buyers bought it right back up. Now, we flagged through the rest of the day. We didn't necessarily make a move up or down. We kind of went back and forth in a very, very tight range. So I'm going to go ahead and cop out on this one too. I want to see another day or two of information. My gut feeling is that going forward, we're going to be in a good place in this name. I also feel like we should break above this trend line here and actually continue this trend upward. So we'll see how it goes with Airbnb. Generally speaking, I like this. I'm not in a rush to buy this until we actually have a close above this trend line, until we have a little bit more clarity on what some of the next steps are going to be for reopening. So a great call or great request from our YouTube family out there. So again, we are 6 minutes over on today's show. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Great participation. Great to see all of you guys. Great to have some participation from some of the new faces. Let's keep it up. If you have questions, if there's something that you don't understand, bring it to this session. I would be happy to try and do my best. As you can see, the community often has my back. We have community members here that are giving trade plans like Joe did with his infrastructure plays from Texas the past couple of weeks. We've got people on YouTube sending in suggestions. So I just want to thank everyone for their participation. We look to doing this every single day. We want the community to be one of the strengths of Benzinga, and the community is going to be done by all of you viewers and participants. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And remember, folks, until next time, happy trading. Brian, I think you are going to have to actually end the stream since you are the host.
You got it.